So getting back to the Chubettes, now it's Graham. Why don't you go ahead and introduce everybody?
We're the Michigan Rattlers. Right here is Christian Wilder. He plays the keyboards. This is Adam Reed, plays bass and sings. I'm Graham Young. I play guitar and I sing. And this is Tony Audia, and he plays the drums.
Hey, our first question is: welcome to the Elevator. How did you like it?
Loved it. Yeah, this is an incredible building,
Yeah.
and I wish it was mine.
Well, it is. You can come back because you guys are all from. You're living in Petoskey. And as I'm listening to you play, and we've wanted to get you in the Elevator for quite a while, but as I'm listening to you play, really, you're all from Petoskey, and I'm from Michigan. I was born in Michigan, but you call yourselves the Michigan Rattlers. And I'm fascinated by rattlesnakes because they freak me out. And I'm listening to you guys, and I'm from Michigan, the Michigan Rattlers, and then suddenly I'm like, if you took a Michigan Rattler and dropped it into Laurel Canyon in California, you've got such a great sound. I mean, it's to have music, Michigan heritage, and your songwriting and your music style really reminds me of that Laurel Canyon sound that I really, really miss. And I'm hearing you play, and I'm thinking of somebody like Graham Parsons and Emmylou and they're they've gone or they're getting older, and you guys are really, I love your sound, and it's very unique, and I want to see you do well.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's funny that you say Laurel Canyon because we kind of started out in L.A., strangely enough.
So you started in L.A., and then you eventually just all came back to Michigan? How did that work? Tell me about the heritage.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. We all grew up in Petoskey, right? And then I moved out to Los Angeles, where I do still live, but we kind of base everything back in Petoskey. And then Adam came out, and so we kind of started the Michigan Rattlers in Hollywood.
End of 15.
Yeah, okay. And then Christian came out, and so it was the three of us out there, and then we kind of moved everything back here to Michigan. That's when Tony joined up full time. But yeah, so there's definitely some of that California influence for sure.
Yeah, it's really nice. And how did you get the name? Because the Michigan Rattlers are unique.
Yeah.
Compared to Pussy Diamondbacks. you know what I mean? How did you come up with the Michigan Rattlers? Because that's like Verner's or Lay's or something very Michigan-based.
It was close between that and Pussy Diamondbacks.
The Pussy Diamondbacks.
It was a close second.
I knew it's a cover band that I used to be in a long time ago. Yeah, we used to be
nice.
Do GoGo covers. But that's a great name. And how are you promoting yourselves now? Because 30 years ago, I'm in radio, I'm out of radio. I was talking to some seniors in high school yesterday. They don't even know what a radio is. So how do you promote yourselves now?
Well, I think probably the easiest is the internet is the most major factor of that. And Spotify, honestly, it's it's a love-hate relationship kind of thing. The payment is very well documented. It's kind of dismal. However, I would say 80 to 90% of our audience wouldn't know us without the help of Spotify. We get recommended. They like certain artists, we get recommended down them. But and conversely to that, though, this band we've always toured really hard and kind of built a following on a very ground level. And so beyond the internet, like word of mouth has really been one of the biggest factors in terms of us growing an audience across the country. And I think all of our strength is playing live together because that's what we grew up doing. So when people come and see us perform live and they see the chemistry and they see the energy in that show, they immediately tell their family members, they tell 3 of their friends, and the next time you come through town, you got 15 more people there.
Because I have been listening to you guys on Spotify so I can hear your library and whatnot. What I really love is the songwriting. Graham, are you all writing together or are you writing individually? Your songwriting, that's how come I have so much respect for you all. The songwriting, I love it because it's you're a great songwriter. How often do you, or all of you, write?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with me where it's, I'm just kind of do it on the acoustic guitar. And, I mean, how often, I guess, kind of just whenever, I don't really, I guess, adhere to any super strict schedule or anything like that. But yeah, so, I mean, I kind of will come up with the songs on the guitar and then bring them to the guys, and we'll kind of flesh them out from there. And, of course, they change. And,
Right.
And
you've all been playing for so long. Graham, you can start out lyrically with an idea, and then Paul will bounce something, and the song becomes a song.
Yeah, we like to do this thing kind of where he has like the rough form, and then he just plays us just by himself, and then we're all in the room, and we go, all right, let's try it. And then we have no preconceived
right away.
notion.
Yeah.
So we kind of just like go for it and see what happens. And I would say majority of the time it's like not that close, but every now and then it's like the first thing that we're like, oh yeah, that works. But usually what happens is we try it, and then we're like, okay, that didn't, let's try this kind of groove, let's try this type of feel. And then it's just the process of building up and tearing back down until you get to a point where you're like, oh yeah, that's how the song goes.
Now, with you on keyboards, are you giving birth to songs on keyboard, or Graham, will you pick up your guitar? Does it start either on keyboards or your guitar, or just vocally, on its own?
I guess usually on the guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there has been a couple songs that I've kind of figured out very rudimentally on the keyboard, and like the piano, just like the shitty out-of-tune piano that my parents have, and it's really just to like break myself out of the guitar, because I feel like it's like play the same 3 chords
Right,
over and over,
right.
and it's like it sounds how it always sounds,
Right.
and it's like, oh man, I gotta get it in a different headspace.
Yeah.
So I can barely play the piano, so then I go over there and try it.
As you're writing songs, do you hear the harmonies are beautiful? You have. Do they come in hauntingly, and then you just say, "Hey, I need some backup. Listen to this."
No, not really. I mean, really, Reed just kind of goes for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Sing what I think I can sing.
But it's really great, and as you sing, I see that vintage Detroit logo, from the start of the Tigers, and it's like I said, it's really nice to hear what's happening, especially here in Michigan. I had quite a while back, Bob Seger in the studio, and I said, I like to ask artists like that, because Bob's no longer on the road. Who are you listening to, Bob? And he said, there's a great pool of musicians here in Michigan, and you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean,
can
we
you?
were at the Jammies in Grand Rapids last night, and I mean, yeah, they were great bands. I don't know, and earlier we were talking about like Theo Katzman. And,
Yeah, all those folks.
That whole like U of M
Right.
Yeah. I will say-
collective group from like 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that was.
No, and I will say we had the honor of opening 2 shows for Bob on that last tour that he did. So he did like the big long Detroit stint. We got to do like the last 2 with them, and just got to meet he couldn't be more gracious and like
Right.
more kind, just super genuine human being. And then you get like the kind of more inside info of how those things get down, because in like the music business, there's tons of people always talking to each other, doing these kinds of things, and you never know how much an artist has a hand like that, picking their openers and stuff. And then Bob truly cares. Like, he truly wants to listen to those bands. He truly wants to, like, have a say in who's playing and whatnot. So to learn that, and then he watched our set from the side, and it's just like, man, this is a guy that, he's just not passively doing it. He actually cares about the community and, like, Michigan artists and young artists as a whole to, like, really help them propel forward. So.
You were mentioning, because how many years have you been together?
Well, we grew up together, so
Okay.
we don't really even remember meeting each other.
That's awesome. That is so great.
But we
You
started
have
playing.
no idea how you met each other, because you grew up. Yeah,
I moved across the street
Right.
from Tony when I was 2.
yeah. I met him peeing on a tree.
Right.
We were playing baseball.
You're not wrong.
Right, not at all, not wrong on a hot summer day. My goodness.
We started playing
Yeah.
high school, and then this band started in 2015, 16 early.
Yeah, I think our first release was 16,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I think we all grew up together in like a really small town. So there's like, first of all, not that many people playing instruments in general. Like there's a good band program and whatnot, but not many people playing like the instrumentation we have. So just like naturally, you kind of found each other. It's like, oh, this guy plays bass. Let's play sometime. This guy plays drums. And yeah, I mean, for me on piano, these were literally the first guys I ever learned to like improvise around on chords with. So
And
that's kind of funny.
You've been together for so long.
Yeah.
And then Paul, we were just talking, you've been on the road for a long time, and it would be interesting if you could just seclude yourself in a recording studio. What would that do for you guys if you could just lock yourself in a studio for as long as you want, getting the great engineer, whatever? But what challenges is that about a studio as opposed to a live stage?
Yeah, well, yeah, that is kind of something that we've, in the last couple of years, kind of been trying to wrap our heads around. Because we all grew up in the live setting, right? And so the studio is a completely different thing. And it is hard to find, space and all the equipment and people that are willing to let you just kind of like explore. But yeah, I mean, having a studio space really just kind of we'd learn, I guess, really, and just make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, again, similar to
Make crappy recordings. But
Yeah, it's similar to the playing thing. It's just like recording, like you just didn't have any exposure to it
Yeah,
up north.
right.
It's not that it's like wasn't scarcely around, just like wasn't around, period. So I know for me especially, it's like in learning the instruments and learning to play with other people, it just like didn't even enter the thought process. So now that you actually are out in the world now, like you said, that's a constant point of conversation for us is how do we now translate and try and grow in the studio space and explore? So
Does a studio, do you have fear of just going into a studio? Because I recall, like, the Grateful Dead, we don't want to go into a studio.
Yeah.
And when they finally did, it was costing the label so much money because they were taking years to record a studio. And finally, it was Phil or Jerry just said, let's just go in and just lay stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you're getting Casey Jones and stuff like that. Would you like to get your production in a studio very involved, or do you want to keep it simple, and try to, let's do what we're doing in the studio like we do on stage?
It's always a back and forth between those two ideas.
Yeah.
It's and things play on either end of that. And lately, it's been trying to get the life back into recordings, and because you can go and plan and try to like sculpt out a vibe from something that's very rigid, or you can have like human interaction directly in your recordings. You have to have both those to make good recordings, I think.
yeah, I think creatively where we've been at is everything up to this point has been very much live kind of originally, so we're just naturally craving to like try and be more studio intensive, but what we're finding is like we'll push that way and be like, okay, how do we inject some of that energy back now, so we're trying to find where each kind of feed off of each other and stuff, but I think just more exploration is the main goal.
We've got people watching right now for the first time. How does folks, where can they follow you? What's the easiest way to follow you in the Michigan Rattlers?
I guess Instagram or just
Yeah,
anywhere.
Any of the social medias. We got a website, MichiganRattlers.com. That's where we post all the tour dates and stuff. But really, the social media is where we're going to put up the regular updates and like good stuff.
Yeah.
And then Spotify you can find our music anywhere online. But
Do you guys, I mean, you've known each other for so long you don't even remember how you met. But do you guys get along? I mean, has it worked itself out after so many years? You know each other so well. It's like you might see or hear something, you guys just, let's put it to rest. I mean, how do you live and just tour with it? Or are you guys sick of each other?
No. I mean, I think I guess like anybody, if you're this close to somebody for 4 weeks, 6
Right.
weeks,
Right.
it's like, all right, Jesus, we need about a week
Right.
of alone time.
So you get up to Petoskey and it's like, I don't want to see you guys for a
Yes.
while, okay?
Yeah, basically the mode is once we finish a tour for at least
Okay.
1 week after,
It's like
we all
nobody's
kinda
really talking to
go
anybody.
do our own thing. If anything, maybe we're shooting a couple texts, but yeah,
And it-
we're not like going and hanging out the next day together.
Yeah. Or if you had a band
But
member.
when you
know.
do like after 1 week,
Yeah.
maybe it'd be like, hey, you guys want to go meet up for a drink
Right.
on Thursday, and then it's just like just back together,
Right, we had
making
a
jokes and
spoons
making.
player, Randy, and we'd get off tour, he'd be over at our house, we had to let him go.
Yeah, it's like,
know?
Randy, take it easy,
And
buddy.
I don't know if it was you, Paul, you were saying, because you guys are up in Petoskey, and I have no use for snow, and you were talking about the time you were traveling from Toronto, getting back to Petoskey with just one headlight. Is it just a pain in the ass, like when you guys are on the road for a long, long time, like we've got to drive to Nevada, and then our booking agent has us going to Rhode Island? I mean, is it,
It's weird. Because during, like, we did a West Coast run. We had
Right.
10 shows in 11 days. We went from British Columbia all the way down to San Diego. That was like the stretch or whatever. And during it, it was crazy and you're tired and everything. But then looking back, it was like, wow, those were some of the best shows. And you're just driving. There's just some magic to it at the same, even though it's hell.
right?
Most of the details are not good.
Yeah.
Oh, I
But
bet.
it's
And now
everything
with
all
the
at
price of gas, I mean, what kind of challenge is that? Because I mean, wow, that could be let's see where that goes.
Yeah, we did. We were actually just on the West Coast in February, and this is kind of like the second surge of gas being expensive. But when we picked up like an opening tour, we were opening for this kind of bluegrass jam band called the Little Smokies, and it was a West Coast run, and it was primarily in California. Like it started in L.A. and then did a bunch of dates up California coast, and then Portland and Seattle. But at the time, California, you couldn't get gas for anything under $6.
And now
Yeah,
it's
it was like at that time, my
$9.
folks were calling home. It's like
Right.
gas is breaking $4 in Michigan. I'm like, I don't want to hear it right now.
Sounds great.
because it sounds great.
right.
If you think hard about it, then you won't do it. So you just
Yeah.
don't think that hard about it.
No, you got
Whatever.
you accept
Yeah,
it as
no
just like a
choice.
necessary part of it. you
And
know?
now you've got to tell a club, I got to add a surcharge,
yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
we
nice.
were going to play for 500, but now we need 7,000
Yeah, right.
for gas.
We should try that sometime.
Or do you, instead of getting free drinks at a bar, we'll take gasoline?
Yeah.
You know, things to think about. Graham, I noticed you got a really unique guitar tone. Tell me about your guitar. Where's your guitar?
Yeah, it's a Telecaster copy. It's a company called Nash makes it. It's just like a Fender custom shop, but a little bit cheaper. And then it's a like Fender copy of an amp. I don't know. I'm glad you dig the tone. I don't know. I feel like it's a constant push and pull and struggle of. I feel like every tour that we go out on, it's like the configuration that I have is a little bit different because I'm still always trying to figure it out, and I'll like it for like 2 weeks, then I'm like, oh Jesus, this sucks. This sounds like shit.
Yeah.
And I gotta figure it out.
And
So
as you guys, you discovered each other, at birth, but when Graham was little, is there anybody like Graham really, that guitar tone that you really, it grabbed your ear and you go, I love that sound? Who would that be when you were little
I mean, I guess the first, which makes no sense based on how we actually sound, but Angus Young and AC/DC, that was like the major life-changing experience. I played hockey growing up as a little kid, and I remember we'd play like classic rock in the locker room, and I remember being like 8 or 9 and hearing Back in Black, and I was like, oh my God.
which is great. So you got that AC/DC. Paul, like your little Paul, who's your drummer?
Little Paul.
Tony,
Tony.
I'm sorry. I've got a disease. I've got MS.
You're fine.
No, but I mean, who was it when you were little that you said?
My parents constantly played the Beatles. So it
Okay.
was Ringo Starr.
So Ringo.
And John Bonham. That's
Okay.
those two. But I don't feel like
Yeah, but it's like you decided to be a drum. I wanted to be a drummer, and we had music class in 5th grade, but they had too many drummers. So I'm going to play flute, and that was the end of my career. And a keyboard. Is there somebody growing up that you said, man, it's got to be keyboards?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, okay, so it was like keyboards was kind of forced on me before I even recognized that I was interested in it. It was basically, my dad played piano a little bit, and when I was very young, they were like, we're going to start you in piano lessons. And I'm pretty sure my response at the time was, I'm not interested and I want to play guitar. And they're like, well, do it for a little bit, and if you don't like it, you can always switch. Obviously, I never ended up switching.
Right.
But very early on, Elton John was very much like my first exposure to like popular music, like piano playing, because my dad loved it all the time. So he was constantly, whenever he sat down, he was playing like an Elton John tune, so I kind of grew up that. And then when I was in high school, what sealed the deal for me was Ben Folds. I heard Ben Folds play for the first time, convinced my dad to take me down to see him in Detroit. And I was like, oh man, you can play piano and you can rock. It's just like.
And you on bass, was it Please Say Lemmy from Motorhead? Yeah, when I was 5, it was Lemmy Motorhead. No, I mean, who turned you on?
I can remember being in high school trying to do that Lemmy
Yeah.
thing with the finger.
Really?
Yeah. Well, and I listened to
Seriously? Oh, that's incredible. You are now my favorite bass player. I remember hearing Motorhead for the first time. It was a British import. I've never heard just a loud, love it. And now I'm missing. I'm going to have to go home and drink Jack Daniels and smoke it for Lemmy. You guys, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you for the elevator. And if you run into any musicians that need help, we love to promote and do what we do. But you guys come back here because you got a home. So
Thank you.
Thank
be
you so
safe
much.
and get back to Petoskey before dark. You've got to go through Ludington, and that's a bad neighborhood.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks.